We will now move to a round of floor speeches. Anybody who has any opinion on this motion, just stick your hand high in the air. We'll take the gentleman there on the second row, then we'll take the gentleman on the first row. Yeah, you can speak from there, but please stand so you're visible and state your name and college for the record.
My name is Oliver. I'm from Robinson College. I'd like to quote, adapt a Monty Python quote. What have the Sabs ever done for us? And clearly, they've provided condoms, apparently. Condoms, I don't really like the idea of putting on a CUSU condom. It just doesn't really sit with me that well. But you say that many of us need to try and interact with CUSU. I've really tried. I'm very heavily involved in a particular society, and I always have to liaise with CUSU. I've emailed them, I've rang them, I've even tried going in, and they just don't respond to me. It's really sad, because actually we do a lot of work for them at their Freshers' Fair. And let me move on to the Freshers' Fair. That really gets my grind going. It's one of those things where, so I also work with Anglia Ruskin. Anglia Ruskin Student Union do not charge 1 penny to go to the Freshers' Fair. All societies, it's free to go, completely free. CUSU have a fantastic system where they charge you based on how big your table is and also whether you want electricity, which I find incredible. And I was charged 110, well, the society was charged £110 for turning up. Our particular society provided the music for the Freshers' Fair as well as announcing it and doing publicity. So how on earth they had the balls to charge me, and charge the society, is I find incredulous. But yeah, no, yeah, CUSU is on the lowest of my priorities, and I would urge everyone to disaffiliate. It's the only way to show that they're not representing students, but they are putting a lot of things in dig-in boxes, which is really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ollie.
Daniel Davidson, Queen's College. So I'm speaking basically in the same side as Henry against the motion. And I think that because CUSU does represent us, whether or not we appreciate that, I think is the question. And to continue on the line of contraception, as the saying goes, the best form of contraception is gaining a position on CUSU. One point that Ollie raised right at the start about CUOTC, I think it's worth clarifying that whilst CUSU has obviously put its foot in it one too many times this term, they have owned up to their mistakes on multiple occasions. The sabbatical officers have formally apologised. So I think that's worthy of note. And especially in the words of one famous NUS representative, accountability is where nobody except CUSU hacks participate in the system. And the less that people are incentivized to participate in the system, the more accountable it is. And I think that that's fitting of quite a few views of students around Cambridge, that it is inaccessible, that trying to lobby your own representatives to try and gain access to these committees seems to be trying to break into a friendship clique where you know nobody. And I think that sort of personal aspect of CUSU is one thing that we can't forget. I was going to rattle through some of the things that are particularly abhorrent about CUSU, whether it's the cushy office jobs for Labour Party activists, whether it's the breakdown in relationships with the school liaison officers and access officers to the detriment of students trying to join Cambridge. And I'll skip through the rest of them, but CUSU does represent us, and we mustn't forget that. We need to ensure that we're the students that they care about and they actually come to when they go on their next campaign in Browns. Thank you.
Owen McCardle, St Catherine's College, and I rise as a member of Not the Proper Left to speak on the inevitably losing side, the opposition, according to some anonymous union committee member. Now, I think we all know why this debate's happening tonight. He's sitting over there, the reason. Give us a wave, Peter. And, well, I'm not going to make any excuses, defence of the way CUSU have handled that election. It was awful, and the way certain sabbatical officers who have previously been named in this debate, have behaved on social media around the result of that election is pretty deplorable too. But I think a couple of the alternatives we've heard tonight are just not that great. Let's have a council of the JCRs and the MCRs. Well, actually, no. JCRs and MCRs are awful when student politics actually needs to, do some politics. No one wants to deal with these sort of close-to-home, hard-hitting political issues with their mates. And that's what a JCR essentially is. No one wants to deal with proper political issues with the organisation in college that organises the parties. MCRs are, frankly, from my experience, even worse and even more opaque. So what else could we do? We could have referendums on all the issues. But I hope all the Liberal Democrats in here tonight will join me in saying we never want another referendum on anything ever again. So what do we have left? Well, CUSU. And I think we're perhaps at risk of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here tonight. Yes, there are issues. Yes, those issues have been resolved. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Peter. I don't think I've done that yet. Congratulate Peter on his election as NUS delegate. The actual election result has been confirmed. And I'll just end with this. If a light bulb goes in your house, you change the light bulb, you don't knock the house down.
The lady there, and then the gentleman there.
I'd like to propose the motion that CUSU doesn't represent us students and pick up a few points from Henry's speech. The excuse that people are afraid of computers does not justify a lack of email or name of any of the SABs on there. Secondly, I challenge the idea you said they do represent us. They did not contact, for example, the rifle societies who were directly affected by their motion to remove firearms, which was a definition they didn't provide at Freshers' Fair. So they haven't even thought of the student societies that this motion affects. How can you say they represent us when they don't even consider these societies in bringing motions forward? I'd also challenge whether CUSU knows what it's about. If I'm correct in saying a motion was brought forward about supporting people who are persecuted by their government in Kashmir, this is a political, it's a political support, but you have to ask, are you going to come out and support all people who are persecuted all around the world? I don't believe this is part of CUSU's role, and I think that that fact that that mission was brought forward is indicative of the fact that CUSU doesn't know its role.
I would like the gentleman on the front row, sorry, if you stick your hand up, Peter. So, I would like, if possible, somebody to summon some more points in opposition or abstention of this motion.
Hello, Peter McLaughlin, down in college. I've been mentioned by name a couple of times. It's really weird. So I'm going to speak in proposition. And I'd like to respond to a couple of points that a couple of people have made about why students don't get involved. Because Henry seemed to make us think that the problem's with us. We don't get involved, So I have a question for you. So Henry asked you, did you know your representatives are in CUSU Council? And you may not have. But did you know the voting composition of CUSU Council? So yeah, the JCRs get a vote, the MCRs get a vote, academic reps get a vote, the sabbatical officers get a vote. The campaigns all get 2 votes. The liberation campaigns, I don't know if any of you know the liberation campaigns, it's like WUMCAM and CUSU LGBT+, the BME campaign, they all get 2 votes, despite being representing disproportionately small parts of the university, but you can explain that, if there's reasons for that. The PTEs also get 2 votes. Now, I actually want to show of hands here. Who has even heard of the PTEs? 4 people. 2 of whom actually sit on CUSU Council, have heard of the PTEs. The PTE elections last year had a lower turnout than, I think they had like 300 people total show up. They were not, to the best of my knowledge, announced publicly in any widespread way. I only knew about them because a personal friend of mine mentioned them to me, who works for CUSU, and said maybe I'd consider running. The structures of CUSU Council are not democratic. They disproportionately represent the small number of people who are on the inside, who have the know-how to get into the campaigns, to get into roles like the PTE, like academic reps, the small number of people who know how these things work. And I think the best example of that, right, is that if you come at it and you make a boring manifesto hoping people to read it, and you go out and you campaign, and you work really hard, and you try to get elected, and even if people do elect you, a committee that you don't know the composition of, a committee behind closed doors, can make a decision saying that you were not elected, which is what happened to me. The structures of CUSU are so opaque and are so disproportionately weighted towards certain small groups of people that for so many people, it's not that they don't get involved because they don't care. It's because they don't get involved because their voice literally will make no impact. Because even if you lobby your JCR representative, you would need, I think, half of all JCRs coming out just to get an even split. Yeah? 70 to 80% of all JCRs coming out on this, and MCRs coming out on the same side just to beat CUSU insiders in any single CUSU Council motion. CUSU is so opaque and so untransparent that it's not the fault of the people who don't get involved, it's the structures that keep them from getting involved. Thank you. Sorry, just finished.
Lady in the second row there.
Thank you very much. So, as
Sorry,
you might
could
be...
you state your name?
Yeah. My name is Eleanor. I'm from Girton College. I technically am not a proper member of this university. I'm an Erasmus student. As you might be able to tell, I'm German. Therefore, I'm technically represented by ICUSU, which in my opinion is even more opaque, as has been said before, than CUSU proper. But I do agree with the opinion that has been stated here, that CUSU does represent the students, if we like it or not. We have to deal with the people that represent us, just as when we're dissatisfied with our government, we have to go and vote. Equally, it's the responsibility of CUSU to give us the ability to vote, to make it less opaque, and to give us the chance, really, to participate in a university student union. It is important for us to have that. As a member of Girton, I can really tell you, the university bus is absolutely atrocious. I've been ill in Michaelmas for a week and a half, and I couldn't go to lectures because I almost passed out on a bike ride to Sidgwick. These issues are important and they affect the whole university. Therefore, there has to be a student body that represents us students to the university. But it's equally important that those people actually represent us. Therefore, I would propose that CUSU needs to be more involved with the students. They need to be more in contact with what we actually need. And I really do think that CUSU as an institution is not inherently wrong. The problem is with its structure and the way that that it is constructed. At the same time, we have to think about ourselves. Are we actually willing to get involved? Are we willing to put the effort in? Because every general election, I know that there are people who are not willing to vote because it's just too much effort to think about the political propositions that are going to be dealt with. And so I think it's important that both sides work towards each other and that we stop having these partisan divisions of CUSU is not important, doesn't represent us, and CUSU represents us on the other hand. We need to talk to each other, and I think a good way to do that is through the JC and MCRs. But that's also, again, then the responsibility of the JC and MCRs to actually put the effort in to make sure that they get input from the students, what they actually want CUSU to do, which then we are again at the identity crisis of CUSU. We have to define what our student union wants to do and what is important to us. Thank you.